Welcome back to the Tales from the Apocrypha. I have a super interesting one for you guys today. As far as we can tell from the Bible and extra-biblical writings, that everything was going mostly okay for the house of Israel up until the time of Solomon. That's when things started to go off the rails. Now let me clarify, the children of Israel still stumbled, still sinned against God, but they always managed to find their way back on course, and they weren't getting taught false doctrines. Now, after Solomon, when the house of Israel went into captivity in Babylon, that's when they started bringing back false teachings. That is when the Talmud started to formulate, and then extra-biblical laws started getting taught by Pharisees. This is sometimes referred to as the oral law. And it's called the Babylonian Talmud. They don't even disagree that it came from Babylon. But what happened in Babylon? This is where the writings of Josephus come into play. I don't have time to read it all, but this is in chapter 10 of book 20 of the Antiquities of the Jews, written by Flavius Josephus. And this has some very interesting information about the high priests. The high priests were supposed to come from the line of Aaron, Moses' brother, but according to this, it doesn't seem like that was always the case. According to Josephus, that changed when they went into captivity in Babylon after the reign of Solomon. He says that the high priest came from Aaron, who they've already spoken about, until Phinehas, who was made high priest during the war by the seditious. I encourage you to go read this, but in a nutshell, everything was hunky-dory. It was the line of Aaron up until Phinehas in Babylon. Then the sons of Aaron were replaced by different priests. This is probably about the time the Talmud started to form. Then after Babylon, the high priests were given back to the stock of Aaron. Then things went sideways again when Herod was made king. And Herod made sure that there weren't any high priests appointed from prominent families. And the people he appointed were barely priests. This makes sense where the oral Torah originated from. The commandments that men made in the time of Babylon were being taught as God's laws, and they were not. This makes a lot more sense why Jesus was so critical of the Pharisees. He called them the offspring of vipers and evil. You see, the Pharisees read the Torah to everybody, but they taught their own commandments. They did not practice what they preached. Jesus said to do and observe everything they tell you when they're reading the Torah from Moses' seat, but then don't act like they do because they're not following the Torah. And this is why they constantly accuse him of breaking laws that he did not. He broke Talmudic, man-made laws. He never broke a law in the Torah. According to Josephus, the Talmud did not originate from the house of Aaron. That doesn't mean it's not profitable for learning sometimes, but it should not be looked at as authoritative.